Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm very sorry that the recording sound may not be the best this episode. I'm having some issues with the recording device I'm using, so I hope you're going to be okay with it this episode. Then I promise it'll be fixed by tomorrow at max. Thank you again, and have a good day.
Hey there! I wanted to share an absolutely bonkers story that happened to me a few months ago. Let me set the stage for you. I was minding my own business at a local park one sunny afternoon. It was a beautiful day and I thought it would be nice to enjoy some fresh air and read a book under a shady tree. I had settled down on my favorite spot when I noticed a mother and her kid walking towards me. The kid, let's call him Timmy, couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old. Now, I'm not one to judge people, but something about the mother's demeanor immediately set off alarm bells in my head. She approached me with a stern expression and said, "Excuse me, why you're sitting in our spot?" I looked around wondering if there was some unspoken rule about seating arrangements at the park. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was a reserved seating here. I can move if it's an issue." She didn't say anything but gave me a haughty look as if she expected me to move without her having to ask twice. I decided to stay put, thinking she might be kidding, but boy was I wrong. As I tried to get back to my book, I heard Timmy crying and whining to his mom. I couldn't quite make out the words, but it was clear he wanted to play on the swings, which were nearby. His mom, however, seemed to have other plans. She leaned over to me and said, "My son wants to swing on that swing set. You need to move." I raised an eyebrow, puzzled by her attitude. "Why don't you just let him use one of the other swings? There are plenty available." Her face turned beet red and she huffed, "No, he wants that one. Move." Now, I am not the confrontational type, but I also wasn't going to let somebody bully me into giving up my spot for no good reason. I shook my head and said, "I'm sorry, but I was here first. There are other swings available," as I mentioned. And that's when things started to escalate. The entitled mother went from annoyed to furious in a matter of seconds. She began shouting at the top of her lungs, "You're ruining my son's day. I can't believe you're being so selfish." I was taken aback by her outburst and tried to keep my cool. I'm not being selfish here. I just wanted to enjoy the park like everyone else. There are plenty of swings for your son to use. By now, a few other park goers had started to take notice of the commotion. One woman who had been pushing her child on a swing nearby chimed in, "There are other swings, lady. Quit making a scene." The entitled mother turned her ire toward the woman and screamed, "Mind your own business. This woman is refusing to let my son have a turn on a swing." The situation was getting out of hand and I could see people starting to pull out their phones to record the spectacle. I decided it was best to disengage and avoid any further confrontation. I stood up, collected my things and said, "Fine, take the swing. I'm leaving." As I walked away, I heard some praises from the other park goers who had witnessed the whole ordeal. I thanked him and thought that was the end of it, but boy was I wrong. A few days later, I received a summons in the mail. I was being sued by the entitled mother for emotional distress and ruining her son's day at the park. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke at first, but no, she was dead serious. I showed up at the courthouse on the appointed day feeling both nervous and bewildered. The entitled mother was there with her lawyer and they were making a big show of the whole thing. It was like a courtroom drama straight out of a TV show. The entitled mother took the stand and began sobbing dramatically. "Your Honor, this woman ruined my son's day at the park. He cried for hours because of her selfishness. I demand justice." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her lawyer went on to argue that I should pay for her son's therapy sessions and compensate them for the emotional distress I had allegedly caused. It was all so absurd that I couldn't help but shake my head. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. "Your Honor, I was minding my own business at the park when this woman demanded I give up my spot on a swing for her son. I did so to avoid further conflict. I never intended to harm anyone emotionally. The judge, seemingly fed up with the whole ordeal, dismissed the case and scolded the entitled mother for wasting the court's time. I thought that would be the end of it, but oh boy, I was in for another surprise. A few weeks later, I received another summons, but this time it wasn't from the entitled mother. It was from my lawyer, informing me that the entitled mother was suing me for defamation. She claimed that my comments on social media about the incident had damaged her reputation. I couldn't believe the audacity of this woman. I had merely shared my side of the story online, and it seemed that she was determined to play the victim card at every turn. The courtroom drama continued, with the entitled mother now trying to paint herself as a saint who had been unjustly accused. Her lawyer argued that I had publicly defamed her by sharing my version of the events on social media and that she deserved compensation for the damage to her reputation. My lawyer, on the other hand, presented evidence that I had only shared the facts of what happened at the park, and I hadn't made any false statements about the entitled mother. We also pointed out that her actions at the park had drawn significant attention and criticism from the public. After a lengthy trial, the judge ruled in my favor, dismissing the defamation case and even ordering the entitled mother to pay my legal fees. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. It was clear that the judge thought through her attempts to manipulate the legal system. But the story doesn't end there. Just when I thought it was finally over, the entitled mother had one more trick up her sleeve. She decided to sue me for emotional trauma once again, but this time she claimed that I had caused her so much stress and anxiety that it had impacted her health. I couldn't believe her persistence. It was as if she was determined to milk the situation for all it was worth. My lawyer and I were prepared to fight yet another battle in court. During the trial, the entitled mother presented medical records and doctor's note that supposedly proved her deteriorating health due to the emotional trauma I had caused her. Her lawyer argued that I should be held responsible for her medical bills and ongoing therapy sessions. My lawyer, however, was prepared. We presented evidence that showed the entitled mother's medical issues were pre-existing conditions, and there was no direct link between her health problems and our interaction at the park. We also argued that her repeated lawsuits were nothing more than an attempt to harass and intimidate me. Once again, the judge ruled in my favor, dismissing the case and ordering the entitled mother to pay my legal fees. At this point, it seemed like the judges had had enough of her antics. But here's a twist in the story. After losing 3 consecutive lawsuits, the entitled mother decided to take one final shot. She filed a lawsuit against me for intentional infliction of emotional distress, claiming that I had deliberately caused her harm and suffering. I couldn't believe it. This woman just wouldn't give up. It was clear that she was desperate to find any way to get money from me. Once again, I had to hire a lawyer and prepare for another round in court, and the court drama continued, with the entitled mother once again playing the victim card and painting herself as the innocent party who had been wronged. Her lawyer argued that I had intentionally caused her emotional distress by refusing to give up my spot on a swing, and that I should be held accountable for her pain and suffering. My lawyer, however, presented evidence that showed I had tried to de-escalate the situation at the park and had only defended myself when the entitled mother became aggressive. We also pointed out that her repeated lawsuits were a clear abuse of the legal system. In the end, the judge not only dismissed the case but also issued a warning to the entitled mother about filing frivolous lawsuits. The entitled mother left the courtroom defeated and humiliated, and I never saw her again. It was a long and exhausting journey, but I had stood my ground and refused to be bullied by someone who thought they could manipulate the legal system for their own gain. So, as a quick background for those who don't know, MTG Magic the Gathering is a competitive card game with cards ranging from 1 cent to $30,000 in price. At our local game store, there is a guy who's known for being pretty dodgy with trades, and he always has the latest cards, but if you want to get them, you kind of have to throw a few extra dollars worth of cards towards them, regardless of whether or not your cards are worth more / harder to find or such. So my partner sees that said person has 4 Scuplands, very powerful cards that essentially give you 2 colors of mana, what you used to cast cards without any downsides, i.e. pretty much better than every other land out there to date. They are worth at the time $100 in mint condition and are pretty hard to find. So of course she calls me excitedly asking if we can get them or not, to which I say sure. A week goes by and we begin to notice that the cards seem pretty different to the average card. Visibly no difference, but after some testing, it becomes apparent that they are fake. After parting with $400 for the cards, you can understand why the both of us were upset that we paid $400 for something worthless, unusable, and reputation damaging if we continued in trading them off. After confronting said player about these cards, they inform us that they didn't know they were fake, so he's not going to refund us some money, even if we gave him back the cards. Our shop owner says that he can't do much to stop this and suggests we come to a deal between ourselves, which the guy is 100% opposed to. This made me angry. When he goes to the bathroom, I check his folder and notice he has many high-value trade cards that seem to have also been faked, and he has been trying to trade for cash, real cards, or various other things from people in the shop. So I pick the folder up, passed it to the store owner who knows magic like the back of his hand, who determines that they are all fake, indeed, but he has to witness the guy trying to sell them. The guy comes out the toilet and we pass a folder to him stating we thought someone had left it there. And we were just worried as he almost caught us. He pays himself into a high-level tournament that cost $40 to enter in the LGS and proceeds to get to the final round with almost $1,000 in prizes. This is a big deal. So the owner and I come over to the table and request a deck check for the deck he's playing with, making sure his cards is within the rules. Standard practice in a tournament. He passes a deck over, and the owner pulls out each fake card in his office in front of myself, stamped them with a large stamp with the word proxy, aka not a real card, in giant red ink, hands the deck back, disqualifies a jerk from the tournament as well as requesting that he does not trade here until he trades non-proxy/fake cards. The guy flips his crap, demands his money back, demands proof, which the store owner then gives, followed by general swearing and name-calling and the like. The store owner looks him in the face, tells him bluntly that he's calling the cops for fraudulent trading, or something like that. And unless he hands his folder over with the fake cards, he will see him in courts and make sure he doesn't play in any of the other stores around the state. The guy, red-faced, starts screaming, to which the store owner plain and simply picks him up and moves him outside. He's a 6'8", fairly built guy, surprisingly. He bans the person from coming to his store and says that if he doesn't leave immediately, he will end up with a night in a prison cell. I go up, take the guy's trade folder and tell the very few real and good cards in his folder for about $500, and leave the fakes in a bin with the folder in question. Was the guy not to be seen again. I got my money back. And after hearing a bit of news from a store owner close by, I found out that the guy had tried the same crap in another store and was immediately caught out due to our store owner spreading word of him. Hasn't been seen since. The owner also offered a free tournament with same price for all the participants in the tournament. Scumbag got the finals in, so everybody won. It all started on a chilly October morning. I woke up with a mission to find the perfect Halloween costume. You see, Halloween has always been my favorite holiday. It's the one time of year where you can be anyone or anything you want. And nobody bats an eye. This year I decided to go all out and become my favorite superhero, Captain Courage. I rummaged through my closet, pulling out red and blue spandex, a homemade cape, and an old motorcycle helmet that I spray painted silver. Yeah, it was homemade, but it was the effort that counted. I knew I looked a bit goofy, but that's what Halloween is all about, right? With my costume on, I marched to Walmart. The store was buzzing with Halloween shoppers, and it seemed like everyone had their costume game on point. As I strolled through the aisles, I noticed kids pointing and smiling at me. It felt great to bring a little bit of joy to their day. Then came the moment when my encounter with an entitled woman changed everything. I was in the candy aisle debating between M&Ms and Snickers when I heard a loud, obnoxious voice behind me. Excuse me, you there." The woman practically shrieked. I turned around wondering what could be so urgent. Before me stood a woman in her late 40s with an expression of sheer disdain on her face. She had a cart full of Halloween decorations and "let me speak to the manager" haircut that could cut glass. "Yes, ma'am," I replied, trying to keep my cool. Her eyes narrowed as she pointed a shaky finger at me. "This is a disgrace. How dare you parade around this store dressed like a clown?" I blinked, not quite sure how to respond to this. Well, it's Halloween, and I'm just getting into the spirit of things. She huffed, crossing her arms. "That's no excuse. This is a family store, and you're scaring the children." I looked around, and to my surprise, the kids I had seen earlier were still smiling and seemed far from terrified. In fact, some of them were whispering to their parents, probably asking if they could get a costume like mine. "I don't think I'm scaring anyone," I said calmly, hoping to defuse the situation. She scoffed loudly, attracting the attention of nearby shoppers. "You're disturbing the peace, and I won't stand for it." "Manager!" she bellowed, demanding the presence of the Walmart manager. Seconds later, a man in a blue vest appeared, clearly bewildered by the whole commotion. "Is there a problem here?" "This person," she pointed an accusatory finger at me again, "is ruining the shopping experience for everyone with this ridiculous costume. I demand you kick them out immediately." The manager looked at me and then back at the woman. "Ma'am, it's Halloween. Many people come to the store in costumes during this time of year. We don't have a policy against it." Her face turned an alarming shade of red. "I don't care about your policies. I'm a loyal customer, and I demand you do something about this." I tried to reason with her, hoping she would see the absurdity of her demands. "Ma'am, Halloween is all about dressing up and having fun. I promise I'm not causing any harm." But reason didn't seem to be her strong suit. She balled up her vest and swung it towards the manager, catching him by surprise. The slap echoed through the aisle, and I couldn't believe my eyes. She had just assaulted a Walmart employee. The manager's face turned from confusion to anger. "That's it. You're out of here. I am calling the police." This woman's entitled temper tantrum was spiraling out of control. As the manager reached for his phone, she attempted to snatch it from his hand. But before she could do any more damage, a security guard arrived on the scene and restrained her. The entitled woman's face twisted with anger, and she started shouting, "You can't do this to me! I'm a loyal customer! I want to speak to your corporate office!" The security guard, who had a patient demeanor, replied, "Ma'am, you can take it up with corporate, but right now, you're coming with me until the police arrive." I was still in disbelief at the whole situation. It was supposed to be a simple trip to Walmart for candy, but it had turned into a full-blown spectacle. The entitled woman was now in handcuffs, still fuming and shouting about how she was going to sue everyone. The police arrived shortly after, took statements from the manager and the security guard and even me. I explained how I was just trying to have some fun on Halloween and how the entitled woman had lost her cool and assaulted an employee. The police arrested the entitled woman on charges of assault and disorderly conduct. It turns out her entitled attitude didn't protect her from the consequences of her actions. As they led her away, she shot me a look that could freeze hell over. But I just shrugged and smiled. The manager, still visibly shaken by the whole ordeal, thanked me for my patience and understanding, and he even gave me a discount on my candy purchase as a gesture of goodwill. My next-door neighbors, a couple over 70 and their 40-year-old unemployed son, have always been very nosy and there to comment on everything and everyone from the position of authority, even about things that were happening in my own apartment. X who called me, when, and who I was with. I'm 35, living alone, working late and on weekends to support my business. I don't have TV, don't listen to the music at night. My friends and family who visit are several. Our favorite entertainment together is to sit at the table and talk. I clean common space and keep the outside of the building tidy as all the other neighbors. I never caused any trouble. Almost 2 months ago, my 40-year-old neighbor informed me that someone is watching the house on the weekends and trying to break in. I never saw or heard anything but mentioned that it's the right opportunity for us to start locking the entrance door. We have a common door without any lock. Him and his parents refused to agree, saying that nothing will hold back the burglars. I've asked other neighbors, there are several apartment blocks next to ours, if they had a similar problem, but nobody confirmed it. They were even shocked that something like that is happening because our neighborhood is considered very safe and always has been. That alarmed me and made me think the whole situation is very weird and unbelievable. Over the past weeks, the situation escalated. The neighboring family called the police after the son claimed hearing someone breaking in at night. Again, neither I nor the lady living upstairs noticed anything. Right after this happened, the family started to barricade the entrance door from the inside, not only at night but also during the day. That resulted in me not being able to enter my own house not once but twice, and later even my family couldn't come inside because a plank was barricading the door handle. That made me furious. They refused to see their own fault in this, blaming me for being angry at them and belittling the problem, but they were still saying no to the lock. Not being able to talk reasonably with them, suspecting the problem was burglars might be a paranoia or personal agenda of the 40-year-old guy and people trying to scare him. I suspect he has unfinished shady business with someone. I went to the building administration for help. I asked my upstairs neighbor beforehand if she agrees to the lock, and she said yes, and so did the admin. Next day, the building manager visited to tell us that the lock will be installed on a door. Asked what's going on, and all hell broke loose. The couple living next to me called me a witch, know-it-all, and a snitch. So I don't know, am I the jerk for telling the building administration about this problem? I couldn't solve it peacefully with my neighbors feeling unsafe in my own house, not only because of supposed threats about the burglars, but also because I didn't know if I was able to enter the building each time I left. I couldn't let these people act as they owned the building and tried to regulate our lives anymore. And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're not the jerk. This is beyond unreasonable. Quite apart from barring you from your own home, it also creates a fire safety risk." Another commenter adds, "Not the jerk. Them blocking the door is also a safety hazard. It prevents people from getting out in an emergency. It prevents emergency personnel from getting in. Paranoia is common with people that use meth. They will think people are following them. They will even think the government is watching them. And I know several people where this has occurred with them, including my roommate. It has also caused them to lose their jobs. An unemployed 40-year-old living with his parents might be on drugs." A third commenter goes with, "Absolutely not the jerk. When your neighbors start barricading you out of your own building, non-negotiable measures are needed. It's very strange that they didn't want a lock put on the door, but you have done nothing wrong. I hope if they need help, they get it." Okay, so my daughter has been always ahead of her grade academically because my wife places a heavy importance on studies and helps her with her academics. My wife used to be a teacher before she became a stay-at-home mom. So a couple months ago, she started to complain about her grade work being too easy and having to just sit without having anything to do until the rest of her classmates finished their work. I brought up these concerns with her teacher, and she said she would look into what she could do about it. Turns out she decided to make my daughter help the kids who were falling behind after she finished her work. She started to complain about it to me, and she really hates helping them because they are weird and they don't understand even after I explain it to them, and I have to help them through it step by step. Those were her words. I sent an email to the teacher and she said she would take it into consideration. However, nothing changed, and I decided to take my concerns to her school's management and told them if they couldn't prioritize my daughter's learning, then there were plenty of good private schools in the area that would. This got her teacher to back off and stop making her help the struggling students. However, my wife is mad at me for this cause she knows how hard it is to be a teacher and they don't need parents making complaints to their bosses since they are already having a rough time. I told her it was her choice to send her to public school. They didn't want to send her to private school cause that would apparently teach her that she's better than people who can't afford the tuition. I wanted her to go to a nice private school since That's where I got my education, and it was significantly better than the 1 year I spent in public school. And that if they couldn't do what's best for our kids, I wasn't going to just let it happen. And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "You're not the jerk. Your wife is though. She's intentionally harming your daughter by making her less educated based on her silly politics and beliefs. You tried it her way and it's not working for your daughter. How much longer are you both going to do this to her? It's time to put her in a private school and put her first for a change." Another commenter adds, "Not the jerk. Your wife said it herself. It is so hard to be a teacher. Teachers are learning how to teach. They spend years getting degrees in it. Why should your daughter be forced into teaching with no training and no pay?" A third commenter goes with, "Everybody sucks. You sound incredibly entitled. It's not a teacher's job to entertain your daughter, it is their job to teach. If your daughter finishes her work early, then she needs to come up with a way to quietly entertain herself, like reading a book or something. Threatening to take your child to private school just makes you sound pompous and self-centered. No one cares if you move your kid to a different school. Don't take out your arguments with your wife about schooling on the school itself. Her teacher, on the other hand, should not be forcing her to help other students. Putting that responsibility on her is not okay. It's no wonder she's getting frustrated. It was a completely inappropriate suggestion." This is not my own revenge. A friend of mine recently bought a house. His hobby is pouring silly amounts of money into marginally awesome beat old cars, and right now he's got a well-used Alfa Romeo 75 on plugs in his driveway. Thus he parks his daily driver on the street. There is plenty of parking on the street, as nearly everyone parks in a driveway. But every few days this woman with a Playboy sticker on the windshield of her white 90s Mustang parks right in front of his house before he gets home from work. One day he pulls up behind her as she is getting out of her car. He says, "Excuse me, ma'am. I was wondering if you would mind not parking in front of my house. I like to park here." And she responds with tons of attitude. "This isn't your parking spot. You don't own the street." He's annoyed at her being rude for no reason. But wanting to get his way, he keeps calm and says, "I know, it's just there is plenty of parking on the street. I'm asking you as a favor." "Yeah? Well, I don't know you. And I'll park wherever I want. Get rid of that pile of trash and park in your driveway if it's so important to you." To be fair, the Alfa does look like a pile of trash, but still this woman was pretty unbelievable. Thing is, my friend works in private security and has contacts in the local PD. He calls his buddy and asks her to run the lady's plates, getting her address, then he waits. She continues to park in front of his house, but he doesn't make it home from work early enough to actually see her. A couple of weeks later though, the stars align and he's getting out his mail when she pulls up. He walks over to her and says, "Excuse me, I just wanted to ask you again to park somewhere else, just 15 feet forward. I'd really appreciate it." "Look, jerk, I am going to park here because it's across the street from my friend's house. Deal with it." Her friend is a skeezy douche who inherited a nice house from his dad and proceeded to neglect it until it was a street eyesore. "Listen, lady, this really isn't cool. It's not like I come to X address," he stated her actual address, "and park in front of your house." Her eyes got really wide and she immediately got back in her car and moved it down the block. He hasn't had any trouble with her since.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.